It's 8 o'clock now, so we can start. Okay, so I have to read, and we have to redo this para. The Lord has veiled himself. So I'll read each sentence, and if it is clear, no problem, we'll go to the next one.
One question, please.
Yes,
One
yes.
question, please. The Lord has veiled is a new paragraph in CWSA.
I didn't follow what you said,
The
Archana.
Lord.
Yes, Archana,
Lord-
it is a new para
yeah.
in our.
Okay, that's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
The Lord has veiled himself.
For us, it is not. That's why. For us, it is continuing.
Okay, so the Lord has veiled himself and his absolute wisdom and eternal consciousness in ignorant nature force and suffers her to drive the individual being with its complicity as the ego. So, a very big sentence, we'll stop here because there's a semicolon. So, the Lord has veiled himself. He is, when he wants to manifest himself, whatever is there within him, he wants to manifest himself. And that manifestation is nothing but the creation of the universe. The creation of all the worlds, right from the highest level to the lowest level, that's the manifestation. And he is just like a poet or an artist bringing out what is latent in himself. So the universe is latent in himself and he is just bringing it out. And mind you, our universe is only one tiny grain in his potentiality. He can bring out millions and millions of universes whose nature will be absolutely different from ours. There is no, his capacity is infinite. So don't think that this is the only universe which he can create. We happen to be in this universe which he has created, but he could have created many others and maybe he has also. We don't know. So, and when that manifestation takes place, again remember that there is an automatic diminution of consciousness, of force, of ananda. There is a diminution. We have discussed that many times. It is absolutely necessary because manifestation means form and form automatically means limitation. So here, and that can be expressed in this way, the Lord has veiled himself. He is diminishing his own consciousness and covering himself up with unconsciousness. He is diminishing his power and covering himself up with incapacity. He is diminishing his ananda and covering himself up with the opposite of ananda. Okay? So by the time he comes down here, he is covered up with inconscience, incapacity, suffering, and death and pain. So these are the coverings, okay, veils that are there. They are nothing absolutely fundamentally real, but they are there. They are veils, and man has a capacity to remove the veils, okay, if he tries hard enough. So, Lord has veiled himself and his absolute wisdom and eternal consciousness in ignorant nature force. Ignorant nature force is matter, life, and mind. Okay, these are the basic ignorance, because as soon as you cross nature force, go beyond the mind, the ignorance starts becoming less and less. Okay, and suffers her to drive the individual being with its complicity. Okay, complicity is not complexity. Huh? Complicity is when you are an accomplice to somebody. Someone, a friend of yours, is creating a crime and you are helping him in that. So you are an accomplice. So what is this complicity? The ego. Okay, so that's what he's saying. Complicity, guilt as an accomplice in a crime or offense. So complicity, the ego is helping him to commit this crime of veiling himself and hiding. That's the image. Very interesting image, no? The complicity of the ego as the ego. Okay, so nature force is cooperating with the divine to hide him. Yes, very interesting way of putting it. Okay, then this lower action of nature, the ignorance, the suffering, and the incapacity. That's the lower action of nature. Continues to prevail, often even in spite of man's half-lit imperfect efforts at a nobler motive and a purer self-knowledge. When man tries to get rid of all these negatives, okay, inconsciousness, ignorance, and suffering and all that, even when he tries to, okay, nature continues to prevail. The nature starts not prevailing when you go to the second level of the spiritual planes of consciousness. Okay. Even there is a certain ignorance, but you can't call it ignorance in relative to the ignorance of the level 1. Level 1 is matter, life and mind. Level 2 is the spiritual planes of consciousness. There the ignorance starts becoming less. In fact, there is no death also for you there. The soul realizes that it is immortal. Okay, so there is no death, no suffering when you go to the level 2 of the spiritual place. Okay, so, but the lower action continues even when man is trying to do yoga. That's our condition. All of us are trying to do some sort of yoga, but we are all subject to ignorance, incapacity, and suffering and death. Because we are identified with our body, mind, life. The moment we realize that we are the soul, all these things will cease. This lower action of nature continues to prevail, often even in spite of man's half-lit, imperfect efforts at a nobler motive and a purer self-knowledge. This is something that happens. People come to the ashram and say, my God, what is all this? You people are quarreling and you are doing all these things. You are supposed to be yogis. But yogis are not perfect. The only difference is that the yogis are trying to get rid of their imperfection, whereas the others who are coming visitors, they are not even trying to get. That's a mistake they often make. They find fault with the sadhaks because they are imperfect. But that's exactly, you can't do that. We are only trying to get rid. Okay, the lower action continues to prevail. Okay, I go to the next one. Our human effort at perfection fails or progresses very incompletely owing to the force of nature's past actions in us. So there is past formations. There is the karma, the law of karma. Whatever you have done will help you or retard your progress. Now this is the best. This idea of the karma is absolutely fantastic because nobody is responsible for your pains and sufferings and your rewards except yourself. You yourself have created. So in the physical world, we often blame on others. Oh my God, I had this misfortune because this fellow did that, because that fellow did that. That's absolutely wrong. Okay. Superficially, it may be right that circumstances may give you a problem. But deeper level, you will see that you are liable to all these things because of your own actions in the past. The law of karma or the law of causality. Okay. And if you see that, then it's wonderful because you have nobody else to blame. Okay. So it's a absolutely opposite of the Christian philosophy, where God makes you in a certain way and then holds you responsible for what you are not responsible for. So this is the law of causality, is a very, very understandable law. Okay. It's got its positive aspects. So our human effort at perfection fails or progresses very incompletely owing to the force of nature's past actions in us. The inertial energy that you have imparted to it. Just like a flywheel, a machine, when you switch it off, okay, it continues to roll for some time. Just like a scooter also, if you switch it off, it will continue to roll for some time because the energy that you have given in the past is getting exhausted. It goes on. There is a very important principle, because when you start saying no to your defects, they'll continue for some time, but afterwards completely stop. Depends on the intensity of your effort. Okay. There is an example I always give to my students, that when you say no, I don't want my, let us say we have a best example is anger. Okay. I don't want my, normally people justify their anger against people. They say, oh, it happened because of this, because of this. But anger is never justified. You must never be angry. Okay, because it harms you only. Anger harms you. All the negatives harm you only. So you must not want to do it. But if you say no to it, it'll continue for some time. That's the law of karma that is operating. That's what he's saying. Note the word past actions in us, owing to the force of past actions in us. Exactly as we said, you switch off. But even then, it continues sometimes. Her past formations, her long-rooted associations, it turns towards a true and high-climbing success only when a greater knowledge and power than our own breaks through the lid of our ignorance and guides or takes up our personal will. So he is using the word here, lid of our ignorance. Okay, so it reminds me of the birthday message given to Satyendra, the doctor, the dentist opposite the playground. He used to live in Natai, and he was one of the participants of the evening talks. So one message he had given to Satyendra is wonderful. It's a problem and the solution. I've told you many times before also, but I'll just repeat because it's so interesting. I find it fantastic. What is the problem of man? Ignorance and wrong feelings. The message goes like this. A lid over the mind, a veil behind the heart, divide us from the divine. My words may not be absolutely correct. In the silence of the mind, the lid vanishes. And in the devotion rends the veil. Okay? So one is devotion rends the veil, you go to the psychic being. And when you silence your mind, you go to the self. So the problem and the solution. It's a beautiful message given to Satyendra. Love and devotion rend the veil. In the silence of the mind, the lid thins and vanishes. So the lid is our thoughts. The movement of our thoughts is the lid. And the movement of our emotions, liking, disliking, okay, love, hate, all these opposites, it creates a movement. And that movement is always an obstacle. So if you make that, so silence in the mind and samatha in the heart. These are the two solutions to your problem of ignorance, incapacity, and suffering. I go to the next sentence. So, only when a greater knowledge and power than our own breaks through the lid of our ignorance and guides or takes up our personal will. For our human will is a misled and wandering ray that has parted from the supreme puissance. Now, note the word carefully, very interesting sentence. That which you think is negative is actually a distortion of the positive. Okay, that's what he's saying. For our human will, okay, your human will is nothing but the divine will which has come down and manifested himself, and in the process it has undergone a diminution. That's the thing. So our human will is a misled and wandering ray. Note the word ray. It is coming from the highest light, okay, that has parted from the supreme puissance. So our ignorance is nothing but our knowledge, divine knowledge which has veiled itself. Our incapacity is nothing but the divine power which has veiled itself. Our misery, our pain and suffering is nothing but the divine ananda which has veiled itself. Okay? The look at the way everything is positive. There is really nothing negative in the philosophy of Vedanta and those philosophy. That's why he says we are not going to reject the lower nature of body-mind life. We won't reject, we'll transform. Okay, it's so interesting. The period of slow emergence out of this lower working into a higher light and purer force is a valley of the shadow of death for the striver after perfection. It's a dreadful passage, full of trials, sufferings, sorrows, obscurations, stumblings, errors, pitfalls. When you are doing yoga, it can be very, very difficult passage. Okay? An easy passage would not be a sufficient challenge for the divine in you. So you want maximum difficulties and maximum ananda for the release. Sufferings, sorrows, obscurations, stumblings, errors, pitfalls. To abridge and alleviate this ordeal or to penetrate it with the divine daylight, faith is necessary. Our faith always. I'll tell you a very interesting story which I have got on the on Facebook. Okay, so there was a man. Okay, and he's fallen from a cliff. Okay, and he is hanging by a thin rope. Okay, but that rope can break anytime. So he prays to God, and he says, "No, not the interesting. It's a very interesting story." He prays to God and says, "God, save me." Then God says, "Do you think I can save you?" And he says, "Yes, of course." "Do you have the faith?" Then he says, "Yes, of course I have the faith." Then God tells him, "Cut the rope." Now, not the interesting. Cut the rope. Now, is that man, if his faith is complete, he will cut the rope. But no human being will cut the rope and fall to death. Nah? So he does not cut the rope. Then what happens? In the daytime, people come and see that what he was actually hanging by that way, he was only 2 feet above the ground. So God told him to cut the rope, he would have just landed safely. God would have taken care of him. Very interesting story, na? So this faith is necessary. But if faith is not there, then this is what happens. He was found dead in the morning, hanging with that rope. So God tried to help him, but he did not have faith, and so he didn't fail. So it's very, very. I found it a very interesting story. God told him to cut the rope, not because there is a 1 mile gap to the ground. It was only 2 feet, and he was hanging with that dead in the morning because of cold. So there is a faith. So how interesting to abridge and alleviate this ordeal or to penetrate it with divine delight, faith is necessary. An increasing surrender of the mind to the knowledge that imposes itself from within, and above all, a true aspiration and a right and unfaltering and sincere practice. Okay? Practice this idea of throwing everything away and depending on the divine with total faith. You can have 2 wonderful examples. One is Sri Aurobindo, okay, from Chandanagar. He's being told, go to Pondicherry. And he goes, no clothes, no food, no money, nothing. And yet he cuts the rope. And what happens when he comes to Pondicherry? God arranges for him everything. Arranges a house for him, arranges money from the admirers in Pondicherry. Okay. And he is okay. But he had to go through a little difficult period. Okay.
But
Yeah, tell me.
God has to mind when he's giving the command. When he's giving the command, he has to cut the mind. Otherwise, we don't know whether it is God who is saying or it is our mind who is creating. No.
Yeah, that's right.
The
lack of faith is not only in the mind, it's also in the vital. And even the body, the body also has got fear. So the doubt is there everywhere.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, but if you have the courage to do that. Now,
No, Rangada, Then
Ah.
how do we recognize God's voice?
We don't. That's the whole point. That's
But
why we
in
make the mistake.
but in Baroda with Lele, Sri Aurobindo had already learned how to silence the mind.
Yes.
So for him, it was no problem.
No, silencing the mind is one thing. There are so many yogis who have silenced their mind. But do they have the faith for the final journey? That's the question. And what about, second example I was going to give you is Ramana Maharshi, a 16-year-old boy who had the experience of death and he realized that he is a self for a short while. And he throws away all his clothes, money, everything. He didn't even have clothes. 16-year-old boy. And he goes and sits in Tiruvannamalai and goes on meditating day and night in that temple in Tiruvannamalai. So this sort of faith you must have. Absolute faith.
But Ranganath, those
Yeah.
are the few ones who have grown to that level, no?
They are the ones who succeed.
I mean, because through their
That's
previous lives, they have grown to that status where they can do it. Whereas we don't know whether we have reason to that level or not.
Yeah, of
So
course.
there are doubts.
Yes, that's right. But this is what Swami is saying, that if you have the faith, you will be taken care of. Okay. But if you don't have the faith and you lean on others, then the perfection cannot. So,
Ranganath, the problem is whether,
yeah, tell me.
I mean, what we are having faith in, like suppose we have an instant, we feel this is the instruction, whether it is our desire or whether it is God's voice. Whether it
Let
is,
me- No, this is a story. It's a way of saying.
no, Ranganath, I'm not talking of the story. This is a question other than, I mean, like, if you go on to have faith
It comes
in what? No, we may be mistaken. That is what I think. That is what Pallavi and Tarika are asking.
Ah.
Then Yasmin told that
Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
get the correct. We can realize that when the
Yes.
mind is silenced. So we don't know whether our mind is, and actually our mind is not silenced.
Yes.
So it is difficult for us to recognize.
Absolutely.
Which is that is what I think is all our
Yes.
question. How
Yes.
to know which is the God's voice?
We don't know. That's all. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Lest we have faith in our own desires rather than on God's call.
Yeah. But one thing is there, you mentioned the silent mind, but it need not be the silent mind only. It can also be the awakening of the psychic being. Okay. Then you will have the faith. Now I'll tell you an interesting story of a girl here. I think the doctors would probably know about her. Okay. She's a young girl. Okay. And she had fallen ill, and it was quite a bad illness. But she refused to take medicines. Why? Because she's saying, God will take care of me. But are you able to listen to God's voice, or is it your own? And she felt worse. She became very ill until finally she had to take the medicines. Okay. So in the beginning, faith has to be a real faith, not a mental faith. Exactly. I think that's the point that Pallavi and Tarika were probably making. That only after a certain point your faith can be perfect. Otherwise, faith can also be a mistaken idea. Because the ego will come in and say, yes, I think God is guiding me. But you have to be very, very transparent. It's quite a complicated question, not a very easy one. I'll give you another
We have to be very sincere.
Yes,
Very sincere.
exactly.
Sincerity comes in.
I'll give you another interesting example. There is a couple, okay, a young girl, maybe some of you know even her, she has passed away. She had cancer. And I knew them very well. They came to me. And the husband said, we have decided that we'll depend entirely on mother. Okay. Then I told them, but is your surrender that perfect? If it is not, you please take the treatment for cancer and you will be okay. Okay. But they refused. They said no. But that is not, it's not a mental faith. It has to be a faith in the soul. And she died. Then they understood what I told them. Now, I'll give you another example of this exactly. Someone asked mother, you have told us to rely entirely on yourself. But Why have you opened dispensaries then? So mother said, is your faith complete? I have to prepare, I have to provide for those people who don't have faith also, or don't have imperfect faith. So now you can see the complex situation. And the problem is we don't hear God's voice. And even you may feel your own ego's voice and you may feel there is a divine voice. So that will take you to disaster. So,
It
very-
is like the story of the elephant, the mahout, and that man who stands in the way of the elephant, saying, okay, there is a divine will, and the elephant won't attack me.
That's right. It's the
So
same
if-
misapplication of a principle. Misapplication of the principle. Correct. That's right. So I told you these two cases. One girl is still in the ashram. She refused to take medicine. No, God will take care of me. But are you conscious of God taking care of you? Are you really conscious? If you are not, you better take medicines and develop your faith. The other was also the same case. No, we'll depend on mother. If she has got cancer, nothing will happen. This is an ignorant situation where you are mistaking your own desire and your own for the divine command. The best example is exactly because of that mother opened dispensary. And we have huge, we have a dispensary, we have Desiree, we have care, what not. So, when your faith is not faith, if you want absolute perfection, faith is necessary. So, and now we come back to the Gita's quotation. Practice unfalteringly, says the Gita, with a heart free from despondency, the yoga. It's quoted. Okay, so it's this is the it is chapter 6, verse 23. So, na vidyat dukkha samyogam viyogam yoga samjitam. Sa nischayena yoktavyo yoga anirvinna chetasa. Anirvinna chetasa. Without depression, you must go on. Even if you feel obstacles are there and you feel depressed, rise, get up and start dusting yourself. In sentences, if you remember, Chandra said, the torch of aspiration often gets extinguished and you have to relight it again and again and again and again. Okay, so that's the Anirvinna Chetasa. You have to get up. Again, the same, one more story is there of Niruddha telling, I have tried so much, but I have fallen flat and I have not succeeded. So Sambhu scolded him and told him, what sort of rose petal sadhaks are you? Get up, dust yourself and start walking again. So this is exactly what has to be done. Okay, but depression and discouragement often comes, but you have to get up and go on. Anirvinna chetasa. Unfalteringly practice. For just 1 second, I've lost my. Here we are. This is the last, that's why. Practice unfalteringly, says the Gita, with a heart free from despondence. The yoga. Practice the yoga. For even though in the earlier stage of the path, we drink deep of the bitter poison of internal discord and suffering, the last taste of this cup is the sweetness of the nectar of immortality and the honey wine of eternal Ananda. That's the end of the chapter. And this is also a very interesting image in the Gita. Gita has got some very fantastic passages. This is one of them. In the beginning, when you are doing yoga, it's very difficult and very bitter and full of, it seems almost like poison. Oh, it is so difficult to get rid of desire. It is so difficult to get rid of attachments. It's absolutely like bitter poison. But finally, when you get at the end, it is nectar. Whereas the normal desires, fulfillment of desires in the beginning, you did fulfill your desire. Oh, it's wonderful. It's nectar. But because there is desire, you will also end up with great suffering. and that is the bitter poison. That's the difference between the yogic process and the ordinary life process in the world. In the beginning, it is pleasant. In the end, it is miserable. In the yoga, the beginning is absolutely unpleasant, and in the end, it is wonderful. So that's a chapter, and that completes the chapter also. So the next chapter is how to practice this yoga. Equality and the annihilation of ego. So you have to get rid of your ego, which is not easy, and equality you have to develop. Samatha. So we have 9 minutes. Can we read one para? Anyone? Who has got-
Rangada, can I ask a question?
Okay. Yes, ask the question. No problem.
You know the last part of the chapter, the what is that? The bitter poison and the sweetness of the nectar. Isn't this the myth? Samudra Mantham? The Samudra Mantham, the myth.
Sunki, I'm quite deaf. So
Oh, sorry, maybe
She's asking about Samudra Manthan.
Oh,
Is it-
yeah, that's right. That's the same thing. Correct. Because
and also, you
are
in
quite
the
right.
Samudra Mantham,
In the beginning, poison comes out.
yeah. And also in the beginning, the Vishnu tell the gods to cooperate with the demons.
Yeah. Correct.
So the demons, they have to, so God somehow God needs those demons to get the nectar of immortality from the sea. So that's I just wondering, that part of the story.
That's right.
The
Very
demons
similar.
have to work with the gods in the beginning.
Yes, that's right. It's okay. The asuras are the ones who are trying to get also, and the gods also are trying to do that. Samudra Manthan. Because this Manthan is a way of describing, because as Mother and Srimdo say, yoga is what? The inner has to be brought out, and that which is outside has to be abolished. So that's a Manthan. Okay, churning. The inner has to come out, and the outer has to be thrown away. You have to go inward, and that has to become more real than the outward. That's a Manthan. Yeah, interesting what you're saying. So there are so many different angles from which you can see the truth. No? So very interesting. Okay, so any more questions? Otherwise, we can read one para. Or if you would like to do it for next time, we'll keep it for next time.
We'll keep it for next.
Yeah. Tell me.
We can keep it for next time, Rangada.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that. So we can stop today. Okay. We still have 6 minutes. So if there are any questions or discussion, you can have that. Okay.
I have to go to school, that's why.
Okay. Okay. We stop. So we'll do this next week, because Tuesday is synthesis, but Friday also is synthesis, but a different, it's the master, Lord and Master. It's different. Okay. Au revoir, everybody.
Thank you, Rangada.